for joining us, Jo. I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about you and your school and the intervention that you're going to talk to us about this afternoon.
Okay, I'm Jo Discum. I'm year 5 teacher at Eveswell Primary in Newport. We're a large primary, 2 form entry, around about 450 children on roll, around about 30 EAL. The intervention I'm going to talk to you today about is Nessy, which is something we've been using in school for around about 4 years or so. Okay, we use Nessy predominantly in years 3 to 6. The children are initially identified by the class teachers who look at things like their single word spelling test score, their PM benchmark, and also just teacher assessment, looking at how the children are reading and spelling on a day-to-day sort of basis in the classroom. Some of the children that access Nessy are children we suspect may have some specific learning difficulties, in which case they will have been RAT scored and RAT tested. The children are initially identified by their class teachers who will look at their single word spelling score. They'll look at their PM benchmark and just teacher assessment through their sort of day-to-day contact with the children. If we sort of test that child having some difficulties with either reading or spelling or both, we pass them along to our Lenco, we'll have a little look, and then they're set up with a Nessy account, which they can keep for a whole year, a term, however long it takes, really. The programme is entirely web-based, it's all done online. Each child has an account. On their first session, they log in, and the programme will assess them. So it'll assess their knowledge of blends, their knowledge of initial sounds, and then it tailors the programme for them. So every child starts in a different place. When they log on, it takes them to a specific sound or blend that it wants them to practice, and then it provides them with games and activities that they can do, and then it will assess them at regular intervals. At the end of every week, then, the TA that leads the intervention will print off a report for each child. We can look at it, we can look at whether they're making progress, whether they need to do that sort of pattern again, or whether they're ready to move on. We use it because it can address reading for some and spelling for other children, and some children do need both, and it will address both of those at the same time. It can also be done in a small group, so it means that a number of children, 3 or 4 children, can have that intervention at any one time, which is slightly more effective in terms of the use of TA time. It is only a 10-minute sort of activity a day. It isn't intended to be onerous, it isn't intended to take a long time or to take children out of lessons for a huge period of time. We tend to do it as part of our group guided reading carousel, and those children will go out of the classroom where it's a bit quieter, put headphones on so they can listen to the sounds being read to them, and they'll do that for around about 10 minutes a day, 4 days a week. It can be really, really effective for some children, and we usually realise fairly quickly whether it's working for a child or not. There are some little glitches in the system where children can bypass questions they're finding difficult once they work out a way to do it. And we're trying to limit the amount of time that our children spend on screens. So we have had some discussion about whether they should be on them as much as they are. However, on balance, the benefits for some children outweigh the negatives. What we look for is whether the children, when they've worked on a particular blend or a particular pattern in Nessy, whether they start to apply it in their writing, their reading in the classroom. Some children do transfer the skill. I think some children see it as a separate skill, and it doesn't get transferred across. When that happens, we try and look at a different way of addressing it because it's obviously not working for that child. We then go back to sort of the traditional, making and breaking words using letter tiles, whiteboard pens, just trying a different set of strategies with children if the computer isn't working for them. We've got a few children who find things difficult. They find typing difficult. So when they're having to type a word, they find it difficult to manipulate the keyboard. So it doesn't necessarily work for those children in quite the same way. If they're in small groups, it means that the TA can sort of circle and monitor what they're doing. When we first started using it, we let the children just work through it on their own, and we soon realised that unless somebody's watching what they're doing, it's quite easy for them to skip questions. That is one of the limitations of it. If you've got a few children on screens, it's hard to see what they're all doing. What is quite nice with our TAs now, because our TAs, year group TAs sit with them when they do it, if they notice anything as the children are working on Nessy, they can then pick it up in a different way through sort of another ad hoc intervention. So, for example, if they notice a child's struggling with word endings, they feed that back to us, and then we can sort of plan some other interventions for the children based on that. So we use it kind of for a diagnostic tool as well.